Hello and welcome. This is Eagle Eye 621, and today we're going to be talking about exactly how much XP you can get from these AFK fish farms. But before we get into that, we're going to talk about how to make one of these as well as what kind of drops you can get. And let's start off with exactly how to make one. As you can see, this is very compact. This particular design, I believe, originated with Doc M77, so I have a link in the description for that. And the materials, as you can see right there, that you'll need are a hopper and a chest. You may want more of these if you're going to have a larger collecting system. You're going to need a fence, a water bucket, a note block, as well as a trapdoor and a pressure plate. Then you're going to want a temporary block to be able to put the iron trapdoor down. And then I also like to use a button in order to silence this note block. Then you're going to want one of these, a perfect fishing rod that has mending, unbreaking 3, luck of the sea, and lure 3. You'll see a link in the iCard to perfect tools right now. And this is exactly how you make it. You have a chest, you point your hopper into that chest, you put your fence onto that hopper, and you waterlog it. Make sure there's a little gap for the water to run into. You put your pressure plate on top of the fence, and then one block away you have your note block, and you have your trapdoor, which would attach to the temporary block above this. And I just put a button up here to silence it. And the way that this works is you grab your fishing rod, you can walk up to the pressure plate to see how this is going to open, but you just press down, and then you hold the right click down once that bobber opens up the trapdoor, and you can walk away with holding the key. You can rebind your keys in order to make this work, but there is a trick that you can do. If you press F3 and T at the same time, it will reload your resource pack. And even though this doesn't have any resource packs, because this is just plain vanilla Minecraft, it'll still work. Once you press F3 and T, which I will do now, you let go of the mouse while that screen is loading, and my hand is no longer on the mouse, and it will continue to click away as if I was holding the key down. And I know you can't see my hands, but my hand right now is not touching the mouse or the keyboard. It will do this until you come by and you click on it to make it stop. So I'm going to click on it, and now it stopped. But I'll just hold this down again. And the way these fish farms work is when something is caught by your rod, the hopper picks it up before it goes into your inventory and will put it in the chest. Just make sure, depending on how long you're going to go fishing for, you do have enough connected hoppers and chests. And you can see just in that brief time, we got a couple of things, nothing all that good. So what can you get from these AFK fish farms? And that's what you see right here. I ran a test for 11 hours using the exact same setup, just with a whole bunch more hoppers and chests connected to. No type of fancy filtering of any kind. I wanted to get all of the items. And you can see briefly that I just cloned some of these chests down here. And then I sorted them to see exactly what you can get. And your most common drop is going to be your raw cod. And then your salmon as well. And instead of going through them all like this, I have a handy book. But just to show you what we're really looking for, the beauty of this farm is divided into two sections. In our sort of regular or junk-ish section, these name tags are a nice drop to have. You can get those from villager trading as well. These nautilus shells are also great to have. You can only get them otherwise by killing drowned. So these are helpful because you need them to make conduits. And it is your only source of renewable lily pads. Lily pads are not much in use anymore outside of decorations, since you can now waterlog slabs. They used to be very helpful to have water that you can walk on because they're very thin and you can place them on top of the water. Of course, you also like to have, well, some people also want the saddles, which you do get a whole bunch of, but most people are looking for the books. So you have fishing rods that you can get, and most of these are enchanted. A couple of them are not enchanted, as well as some bows that you can get as well, and some pretty nice bows that you can get, and the books. Everybody wants the books. And again, you can get some very nice books. I divided these between things with 3 enchantments, 4 enchantments, and then 2 over here, and 1 up top. And just to give you some numbers from this 11-hour test, you can see, I'm not going to read through them all, how many of the different drops I got, starting with the most and then continuing. So you can see again, the raw cod is the most, followed by our salmon and the rest of the fish. And then we divided this over here into the non-stackable items, that being your saddles, your water bottles, and your leather boots. These do come in different durability damages, but most people are not looking for these leather boots. And the fishing rods, the bow, and the enchanted book. Now on to the question of XP. How much XP do you get for an 11-hour fishing experience? So I ran this test, as I said, for 11 hours. I was in survival, so some of the XP was used to repair the rod as it was damaged. And in those 11 hours, I got 69 levels with 6.1 XP bars, which comes out to 12,591 XP. And those bars are right down here. So that would mean that in 1 hour, you would get 27 levels with 10.4 XP bars. Now you can see there's something coming up, but I can show you what that looks like over here with a nice little setup. Let's switch over to survival, and this is what it looked like when I came back from the test. The 69 levels as mentioned with those XP bars, and again, those XP bars are right over here, so you can see as they fill up before they go to the next level, which means that for 1 hour, this is what you got. So it's a little more than 27.5 XP per hour of fishing. But as the book indicated, this is not all the XP that you can get from these fish farms. Some of those drops we mentioned, mostly the cod and the salmon, are actually worth XP if you smelt them. They're worth 0.35 XP, which gives you 897, essentially, XP from the smelting, and you can combine that with the other XP you got to give you a total of 13,488 XP, which comes out to 71 levels plus some extra, or 28 levels again with some extra. Now, obviously you can read, there's a little bit more, but let's take a little bit of a look about what that looks like. And this is the 11 hours of fishing, as I said. We're going to switch over here to the 11 hours of smelting. So this is just from the smelting. And then if we combine those together with the fishing and the smelting, this is for 11 hours. We get the 71 that I mentioned. And then if we zero ourselves out again, you can see that 1 hour from both the fishing and the smelting gives you 28 levels. And you can actually keep up with that. It sounds like a lot of smelting, but given how few fish you get for the relative time, the fish you saw over there was based on 11 hours. You can set up a pretty small system that will keep up and smelt them as you are going if you filter out the fish, and you can even use some of the things to help smelt the fish, like the sticks, but you are going to need some additional fuel in order to smelt them. So, as it says here, there is more XP, and that is from the smeltables, but again, more XP than that, and that comes from the grindstone. You can take your fishing rods, your bow, and your enchanted books and run them through the grindstone to get some of the additional XP that you get from disenchanting those items. Now at this point, it does become a little bit counterproductive. You are going to find that most of your bows and fishing rods you'll have no problem running through and just taking the XP from, but if you're doing fishing for the books, you're not going to want to disenchant the books just for the XP. That sort of defeats the purpose, unless you're setting this up specifically as an XP farm. And as you can see, from our fishing rods alone, we were able to go from level 0 to level 29 with 13.4 bars. That comes out to 1,368 XP. From the bows, we were able to go from 0 to 33 with a little over 7 bars. That comes out to 1,813 XP. And if we disenchanted all of our books, we were able to go from level 0 to level 35 and 9.2 bars, which is 2,126 XP. And just to give you a sense of what that looks like, from our 11-hour test, this is what we got from disenchanting all of the fishing rods. And this is what we got from just the bows. And this is what we got from our books, just the books. Now again, this is for your 11 hours worth of testing. So on your per hour, you have to do that quick math. So what that translates into is, in total, you get 12,591 from fishing, 897 from smelting those fish, cooking those fish, that is. You get 1,368 from the fishing rods. You get 1,813 from the bows and 2,126 from the books. That means that for the 11 hours, you get a total of 18,795 XP, which is the same as saying 81 levels and 6.8 bars. Now, on a per hour basis, that would be 1,709 XP, or 32 levels with 11.2 bars. And just so you can see what that looks, I have that set up over here. This is for our 11 hours with everything. That's the 81 levels and a little under half. And then on our per hour basis, it's 32 and a little bit more than half. Now, let's talk some conclusions here. Even though that seems like a decent amount of XP, to get 1,700 XP per hour is really not all that fast. That's less than half of what a skeleton spawner will do. That's about what the small XP farm, a fully automatic XP farm that uses cactus and bamboo, and I'll link to an iCard right now with that. And that's about what that will do per hour. But the advantage of something like that is that if you put that in your spawn chunks, that'll run, if you're on a server, even when you log off. You don't have to be there constantly fishing away in order for it to work. And in terms of XP grinders, some of those furnace farms, and I'll link another one in the iCards, you can go up to 18,000 XP per hour, which just completely destroys any of this. The advantage you have on the fish farm is it's a relatively small and simple build, as you can see, and it is also a relatively simple way to set up something holding down the right key, or the right mouse key, that is, in order to get that XP. So you can also use this farm in conjunction with your other farms. If you have some sort of a mob XP grinder, you're obviously not going to use this. But if you're using it for a mob drop farm, if you have a witch farm set up, for example, or a general item mob farm set up that you're using for those mob drops, wherever you need to stand AFK, you can build this and do your AFK fishing while you're standing AFK in those other farms. So this does have sort of a dual use component, but really the best thing you have here are going to be your books. That's really the main advantage you have of these fish farms. You do get the bows, but honestly, once you get a bunch of them and you can set up your best bow, and I'll drop another iCard in there for the best weapons that you can have, and you can see what kind of bows you want. Once you have a couple of these, because really one is all you need if you have protected yourself in your farm, you're only looking for these books that you can add. And these are really better more in the early game. If you're going to go for a late game, a villager trader is going to be a lot more effective. Now, a couple of quick tidbits about your fish farm. You do want it open to the sky. That will affect the rates. These are glass blocks that count as opaque. If you had solid blocks up here, that would cut your farm rates significantly. So you do want to have a ceiling even if you're in peaceful mode, just to prevent the off chance of a lightning strike. But if you're not in peaceful mode, the phantoms will come and kill you if you're not in an enclosure. But just make sure that the block directly above the water is an opaque block like glass to make sure your rates don't cut. And if I was fishing in a jungle, and as you can see from my screen over here, this is a plains biome. If I was fishing in a jungle, then on this list you would also see a number of bamboo drops, which is another drop you can get if you're playing and you're fishing in the jungle. But as I said, it's a great early game farm. You can get XP decently overnight before you have time to set up any of the other XP grinders or some of those XP furnace farms. But really what you're looking for is your early game books before you have time to set up your villager trader, as well as some early game decent bows in order to set this up. And, whatever you want from here, the name tags, the nautilus shells, the lily pads, but again, it's really about those books. So if you found this helpful, I would appreciate a like, and for more videos like this, be sure to subscribe. Thanks for stopping by.